Welcome to the Boys of Spring podcast. Unfortunately, Ty had something pop up, wasn't able to make it in today. So I am flying solo here for the first time for this podcast. So give me just a second. Normally he's chatting in the beginning and I'm trying to, make sure this is broadcasting and I'm sharing it around. So give me a hot second. It'll give you guys a chance to come on in here and join. If you're watching live on Twitter, I can pull the comments up on the side. If you're watching on my YouTube channel, which is at Lunchtime in the Lab, or just search Lunchtime in the Lab, you can check out, the other content that I have and everything there as well. Just get this shared real quick and we'll get going today. Probably going to be a little bit shorter since it's just going to be me talking. There's not going to be any of that back and forth, but what we'll do is real quick here, we'll talk about the 4 games that we have on the slate today. We'll build the parlay at the end, the 4-leg parlay. Then of course, if any of you guys have any questions or anything like that, we can certainly talk about it. And then we'll kind of move on. And then I've got my daily show that I do here at 11:30. That's going to be live in about an hour. So I'll be chatting on here for for a minute or two before we I get going to that, and we'll talk some baseball and everything, too. So just one more here. All right, here we go, everyone. Let's pull the notes up here. We'll get into it. You guys stop looking at me. I went ahead and added a couple graphics here. Maybe some of you guys are unfamiliar with like the logos and everything. So instead of you guys just staring like one take at me, where we would have had like Ty and myself and a little back and forth, but with only one camera here, we'll kind of making some do here. I will say here real quick, like I said, I can see I got people watching on YouTube. I can see I got people in Twitter here. So like I said, interact, drop some comments. That certainly makes for a better interaction, a better show. When you guys like it, you comment on it, and then have some feedback back and forth. We can talk about some things. But the playoffs are set. This is only a 10-week season. We have 2 more weeks in the regular season. No team can make it. Who's eliminated is obviously out. Who's made it is in. There's a little bit of jockeying for some like first round, home field advantage type stuff, depending on like how the records go. On the USFL side of things, you have the Stallions and the Panthers going to be in the playoffs. Stallions undefeated. Very unlikely that the Panthers can move up into that number 1 seed. Then on the XFL side, you have the Battlehawks and the Brahmas, who are both 6-2. So these last 2 weeks are going to be pretty important for the remainder of the season for both of these teams. So games involving those 2 teams are certainly going to be a little more exciting, I guess you could say. Here we go. Let's see. First game up though today. First one up on the slate. Let me pull it up on FanDuel. Kind of goofy again. Unfortunately, we have 2 games on today. You have the Battlehawks and Renegades on at 12. Then you have the Stallions and the Brahmas on at 3:00 today. Tomorrow, we have 2 games on at 2:30. Super frustrating when they do that. Ty and myself talk about that pretty often. When you're trying, and the WNBA, I feel like does it at the same, kind of the same thing. When you're trying to grow like a brand or a name, it's kind of frustrating when you're forcing your viewers to choose which game you're gonna watch or whatever. You're not maximizing the what's the word? I guess productivity or viewership or whatever. You're not maximizing it. That being said, though, let's see. First game up, like I said, is the Renegades and the Battlehawks here. Let me get my notes pulled up here. You got the Battlehawks at -3. You have an over/under set at 46. In this game, the Alabama, bleed crimson red. AJ McCarron, he was out last week at an ankle injury. The Battlehawks did still win that game. The Renegades are 1-7, eliminated from the playoffs. I thought last week that they were going to try to play spoiler. They were going to try to, come out here playing for pride kind of thing. And they weren't competitive at all. Towards the end a little bit, they scored. They had opportunity to do the 4th and 12. Where in the UFL, if you're unfamiliar, instead of doing an onside kick, you can do a 4th and 12. But on like the other team's 20, so obviously it's pretty risky because then the other team's in scoring position. But more times than not, they're going to just knee it as they would with the onside kick. But AJ being out, AJ McCarron being out, definitely going to be missed. I mean, that's realistically is the best quarterback in the league right now. The dude was, he was on the Bengals, when Joe Burrow went down, trying to decide whether or not he was going to come back to the league, decided to, he's, playing in it because he'd rather play here than sit on the bench in the NFL. And he wants his kids to be able to enjoy it, all fun stuff there, but he's not going to be playing. You got Manny Watkins, if I'm not mistaken. I just have Manny written down everywhere. Mobile dude. I mean, similar to Adrian Martinez, probably not quite the same arm strength, but fast guy. I mean, he had a 215 all-purpose yards, something like that. Threw for 126 yards, ran for 79 yards. Was looking for a rushing prop, but unfortunately they didn't offer a rushing prop for him in this game. I think that probably would have been a pretty good look. But anyhow, on this game, I think Battlehawks -3 is the only way to go here. You have the Renegades, who's eliminated already. They have a different second QB number 2, which maybe they're going to try him out over Luis Perez, who has been, he's the league leader in passing yards, but really it's because his team's been, is bad. And like, they're just playing from behind all the time. I think Battlehawks -3 is the only way to go in this game. Like I said, they need to win this game to continue to try to move up into that first place seed so they can get home field advantage. So this is a pretty important game for them. In terms of props, I do like Manny Wilkins, though. Over 186 pass yards. He had 206 total yards last week, like I said. Majority of that really being rush yards, though. But the Renegades are giving up a league-leading 12 yards per completion, the second most touchdown passes, the second most passing yards in the league, with an average of 210 yards given up per game, which obviously is over nearly 30 to 24 and a half, 23 and a half yards over, what our prop is set at. The guy's not AJ McCarron, but he's surrounded by just this amazing talent. Our thumbnail player of the day is Hakeem Butler. I mean, this guy is not the best wide receiver in the league. Tall dude, fast guy. The Renegades rush defense has been pretty basement level, but they just held down the Brahmas to a tune of 1.9 yards per carry. So while the Renegades rush defense isn't great, they just performed very well last game. So if we continue to see that, we hope to see that that good performance again. Wilkins only completed 6 of 18 passes to Hakeem Butler. He threw Hakeem Butler the ball 18 times, which we talked. If you watched last week's episode, we figured that Hakeem Butler was going to get a lot of action. He's the number 1 receiver. Just throw it up to the guy that you trust. He only connected with them 6 times. I think second game around, he's going to have a lot more, chemistry with them. They're going to be able to connect, and it's going to turn into some pretty big plays. 186 passing yards is a very low number in a game that I think they need to be really competitive in. So if you like props, you have access to ESPN Bet. It's only on ESPN Bet for whatever reason. That would be the prop that I like in that game. But what's more readily available, just everywhere, is going to be that Battlehawks -3 would probably be the way to go in that game. Second game up. This one's at 3 p.m. today as well. It's the undefeated Stallions versus the Brahmas. Like I said, the Stallions undefeated, more than likely going to be the number 1 team in terms of for the USFL in that conference for seeding wise. Then you have the Brahmas, who are in the playoffs, but why not go and try to get the upset? Are they going to be able to? No. I don't think the Brahmas are gonna lose this game. I don't know if the Stallions lose any games this year, to be completely honest. They are the best team in the league without a doubt. They have a fantastic defense. Adrian Martinez, I've talked about it every single week, is a fantastic quarterback. Rookie out of Kansas State. Really, I think could be in the NFL this next year. This is probably his last year playing the UFL. He's very talented, or maybe goes Canadian football, something like that. But dude is really good. Chase Garber is going to be back for the Brahmas, but he's going to be QB2. Maybe they work him in there depending on how things go. But, it's a tough matchup with 2 teams looking forward to the playoffs. Brahmas are fighting for home field advantage, and, they really would like to get this win today. The Stallions in the last 2 weeks have only won by 4 and 7. This team that's supposed to be the best team hasn't really been blowing teams out in the last couple of weeks. They've won by a combined 11 points in the last 2 games. We have a line of +8.5 right now. The Brahmas are getting +8.5, where the Stallions have not been able to cover in the last 2 games. They're winning these tight games. They've had a few games that have been tight games. Then they've had some absolute blowouts against these real bad teams. But the Brahmas, they're not a bad team. Yeah, I think the 8.5 makes a ton of sense here. I would certainly lean towards the over, I think, too. A normal, practice or saying of mine, however you want to put it, is if you like the dog, you generally like points. Unless you think it's going to be a defensive battle, then of course, getting the dog with the plus 8.5 would be good there. But I mean, the Stallions have a great offense. They also have a good scoring defense. The over has actually moved up a little bit, but over 44, if you're not liking the plus 8.5, I would certainly lean to the over 44. But the plus 8.5, I think, is going to be the best bet here. For me, at least today, for the Brahmas plus 8.5 for the second game. I'm trying to remember if I had any props here. I don't think I had a prop in this game that I liked. Just a tough game. It's going to be two teams kind of headbutting kind of thing. We'll move on to Sunday, 2:30. You got, well, like I said, they're both 2:30 games. Unfortunately, which one? I got a picture up here first. That's not right. Let's pretend that's the Roughnecks on the left. Let's pretend on the right that's a panther instead of a horse. Did it kind of quick when I found out Ty wasn't going to be here. So that's the right logo for the Roughnecks. The Panthers is it's like a helmet, I think. Anyway, the Panthers running back went down. Their best, well, quote unquote best running back, but they've had this other guy, this Colburn guy, kind of emerging out of the side, out of the running back 2 status. So it doesn't really hurt him too much, as he had been a pretty solid running back. You got the Panthers minus 3.5 in this one. You got an over under set at 40. This is another game where the Roughnecks have nothing to play for but pride. This is a spot where the Panthers, realistically, they're not going to get the number 1 seed. They don't really have anything to play for either. Of course, they'd love to get the win here. They'd like to turn around and see, the Brahmas potentially play spoiler, beat the Stallions, and see them lose twice. I don't know what the tiebreaker is going to look like, if it's even a possibility for them to, potentially get that first round, home field advantage or not. But, like I said, not a whole lot to play for on either teams. I lean the under here, I think. Under 40 just seems like a lot when you have two offenses that haven't been really pretty blah, to be honest. I mean, not solid offenses. You have the Panthers that are banged up. They look towards the run more often than not, especially after losing their main running back. Colburn has been a solid running back, but I think they're going to keep the ball on the ground. They're going to and they have a pretty good defense. The Roughnecks have a fairly okay defense. Panthers have a pretty solid defense. Our boy, Kai Nakua, league leader, or had been in interceptions. I mean, just a solid safety that they got back there. If it wasn't minus 190, I would probably say I like the money line. When we're putting this parlay together, we'll probably do the money line on it for minus 190, as it's just a leg, so it doesn't really hurt anything. But if I was going to play something straight, it would probably be the under. But I would certainly lean the Panthers winning this game. But I just don't know whether or not they're going to win by 3.5 points, though, which is going to be, which is kind of a lot for a game that nobody really is going to kind of care about in this spot. And then lastly on the board here is the Defenders and the Defenders and the Showboats here. DC Defenders versus the Memphis Showboats. Showboats are at home. You got the Defenders at a minus 5.5, minus 240 money line, over and under at 45.5. This is the toilet bowl. This is the game where this is the only game where you have two eliminated teams going against each other. They're absolutely playing for nothing but pride. But I suppose when, we talked about it last week, these guys would love to be in the NFL. These guys are jockeying for a potential spot next year, when hopefully the UFL continues. Who knows about that? You had the XFL last year and the USFL. They merged together. Is something weird going to happen? Is there going to be a league next year? Are there going to be more teams next year? Who knows? But you got the toilet bowl of the game. However, the Defenders were certainly the closest team to potentially making the playoffs. Last week they needed to win to stay alive, basically, and beat the Battlehawks, but they lost. They lost to the Battlehawks when they were without AJ McCarron and, and Manny Wilkins' first, start so far within the league here. The defenders still fairly talented. They just couldn't overcome the slow start. They just started out horrendously. I mean, this was a team that was undefeated at home for the longest time. They hadn't lost a home game in a while, and then people were riding them at home, and then they dropped a couple. They kept losing games, and they just couldn't really rebound from that. But they're still a pretty solid team. Showboat's defense is just bad. I have a feeling that they probably make the defenders look great in this game, to be completely honest, just because the Showboats are, just a pretty bad team all around, to be honest. I'd imagine I would certainly lean, I think, defenders -5.5 in this one. Money line, is certainly the better look here at -240, as the defenders really haven't proven that they can go out and beat anybody real handedly or anything like that. But the -5.5 would be the look here. I think I had a prop. Oh, yeah, I do have a prop. Dawood Davis over 51.5. That's the wide receiver, the leading wide receiver for the Showboats. Dude's been pretty solid. The defenders are giving up 10.2 yards per completion, and Davis has been on fire these last few weeks to go along with that. They've just been feeding him. They've just been throwing him the ball, chucking it up to him, letting him kind of do his thing. He has 37 targets in his last 4 weeks, so nearly averaging 10 targets a game. It's a spot where, Memphis is more than likely going to be playing from behind in this game. You're talking, handicapping the game script. You got a +5.5. You're going to have a positive game script for, well, let's see. Technically, it's a negative game script. But anyway, the need to pass is going to be there. I don't see them trying to run the ball when they're down. They're going to be throwing up. And this is a guy that's been having some big chunk plays too. 51.5. That would be a pretty big play, but this guy's he's had some long touchdowns. If he may have even had an 80-yarder here recently. This is the kind of guy that's cashing in in a catch or two. In terms of this Sunday slate, that's probably my favorite play on the board would be Dawood Davis over 51.5. My favorite play on the board for the Saturday slate would be the Battlehawks -3. I do like Manny Wilkins on his pass yards, though. I've always been a player prop type guy. In the NFL, I'm pretty much strictly player props. I don't really play a whole lot of sides. College football, I dabble in player props, but it's difficult, as a lot of people, talking in the Discord and giving out plays and stuff. A lot of states don't allow college football props. In fact, Ty isn't able to bet college football props in the state that he lives in, so he misses out on a lot of that stuff. But I didn't say it at the beginning, but today was going to be a shorter show. We normally have this go about 35 minutes or so, where I'm looking at 18 right now. I see there's some people watching live in YouTube, people watching on Twitter. If you have any questions or anything like that, drop a comment and I can I can pop it up here on the screen. If you're interested in checking out my podcast that I have, Lunchtime in the Lab, down here at the bottom, obviously hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. And then there's a link for the bottom in the Discord as well in the description if you want to get more information on that. But let's put this parlay together here just real quick and give you guys a chance to ask any questions that you might potentially have. And then we'll just kind of move on. As like I said, unfortunately, I don't have the co-host with me today, but no hard feelings to that or anything, but obviously it's better with these types of shows to kind of have two people kind of bounce this stuff off. Whereas when I have my podcast, here in 40 minutes, they're just my plays of what I'm running. And it's, there's not really a breakdown the slate because you have 15 games in the MLB or whatever. Anyway, parlay wise, normally we've been in about +1,000. We had been doing a player prop one, and we had been doing a FanDuel version. I certainly have no problem doing both of them. I don't really have any. We're not going to do a prop one this week. We can start that back up next week. I just don't really see anything in the Stallions and Brahmas game. I just don't really see anything in the Panthers and the Roughnecks game. I don't want to force it. And we're definitely not in the business to try to give any L's out today. I think Battlehawks -3 is a really good look here against the Renegades. The Renegades looked horrendous last week. They did try to come back at the end, but the Battlehawks defense is still going to be there, where the Renegades have had most of their success through the air, mainly because they're playing from behind. But, Luis Perez does throw the ball well. The Battlehawks, if I'm not mistaken, give up the least amount of pass yards in the league. I think they're going to be able to shut them down. And, with the talent that surrounds the Battlehawks with this backup quarterback, I think we're going to be okay with the -3. Let me look, actually. I have it in my notes. Even with the backup last week, they won. They won 26-21. They won by 5, so not a blowout, but I think we're okay with that. I think we're okay with the -3. If you want to go easier or safer, take the money line if you want to do that. We'll go -3 with the Battlehawks, though. I feel good about it. In the second game at 3:00 for today, I think we go Brahmas plus 8.5. Boy, I wish we could do alt lines and do give a little bit, do a 10.5 or something like that. But there's really no football numbers in this. In fact, you see a lot of 6-point, touchdowns because they're failing to get the 2. The Brahmas, I don't think the Stallions let off the gas too much, but 8.5 is a pretty tall number here. I think there could certainly be some back and forth. Part of me really wants to lean with this over 44, but what if the Stallions do back off? Or obviously, on the reverse side, the Stallions could just really kill the Brahmas, but then what if they don't score 44 themselves? So either way you lose. I think the safest bet is probably going to be the Brahmas plus 8.5. So we got on Saturday, today's slate. So this first game's going to start in about an hour and 8 minutes, guys. So we'll want to lock in -3 on the Battlehawks, Brahmas plus 8.5 for Sunday. Both games at 2:30. Stupid. I think we just go money line with the favorites. I think I'd like the Panthers here. Playoff team. They're going to want to continue to, work on things. They want to continue to keep up the momentum, everything like that. Roughnecks, really nothing to play for. Roughnecks giving up a ton of points, giving up points on the ground, especially. So -190 there. Okay for a leg. And then Defenders -240. It's ugly. It's not, but for a leg and a parlay, I feel really good about it. -5.5. I just don't trust them to go out there and win by a full touchdown. It could be a field goal. It could be obviously only by 3 or 4. I would certainly hope that they are able to run away with it, and then hey, it'll be no sweat and we're feeling good. But I don't think it's worth. Taking the extra risk, especially messing with a 4-leg parlay. So that's gonna give us plus 688. So let me see. Where's my thing at? Where's this button? So my Twitter here is at LiveJoeBets. I will post the parlay with the FanDuel link on Twitter at LiveJoeBets. Obviously, if you're watching on Twitter, you already know how to find me. If you're watching on YouTube, obviously, just listen or go find me on Twitter and you can visually see the play. But it's going to be Battlehawks -3, Brahmas plus 8.5, Panthers money line, Defenders money line. That's the weekend, the full week, week 9 parlay for us here. Like I said, if you're watching on Twitter, you liked this show, you're interested to see what other content we have, whatever, come on over and give me a subscribe. Give me subscribe to the channel, however you want to say it. I'm trying to get to 1,000. I'm trying to do a giveaway when I get to 1,000. Do the giveaway from Twitter, as that's where I've got 20 some odd thousand people that follow me or whatever. So that's all I've got. No comments or anything like that today. That's okay. I've got to go get in the attic real quick for my wife's cousin to get something down, and then I've got my own show that's going to start in about 30 minutes. So I appreciate you guys. We'll run that parlay today. I'll post it on my Twitter, and we will see you guys back for week 2, hopefully tomorrow. Oh, I'm sorry, next week. And I'd imagine Ty is going to be around for that one. If not, I'll be here and we'll continue it. But appreciate you.